What a great and enduring mystery. My millennial girlfriend, who is really on top of modern technology and, is of a certain generation and grew up with certain cartoons and cultural references that I never understood, did not recognize who this person is. A reverse image search in which apparently 6.28 billion images were researched did not come up with any clues as to who this character is. So I guess we've really gotten down to the bare bones, absolute bottom of the barrel, last resort in saying to real-life human beings such as you, who are tuned into this week's episode of Tent Talks Tunes, who is this? Who is this vaguely Canadian-looking individual? It's a bank. Whoever it was, he was popular enough to have a bank made out of him. I think there's a little bit of copyright information on here, but it is embossed and the light is kind of dim in here, so I cannot read what the information is, other than it's made in Taiwan. So you know that it is of a certain vintage. To me, he looks vaguely Canadian. I don't know why. Maybe it's the suggestion of the maple leaf on his hat. Maybe that's what it is. But it's definitely somebody. Those facial characteristics are too specific and too carefully drawn to just be random as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that it's a bank really indicates some kind of a product tie-in. So let's reach over here and check my monitor and make sure that I am going on live and that you guys are hearing me ask this extremely pertinent question as to who the heck this bank is. John Bridges says it's Bravestarr. James Pogo says it's Ted Milton. John Bridges says that Bravestarr is a crappy cartoon but a great toy line. Okay, Bravestarr, one word with two R's. Thank you, John Bridges, a.k.a. John the Baptist, a.k.a. King James Jr., a.k.a. lead singer of one of my favorite bands to share the stage with, which is, of course, the Street Clones, from the very hot, steamy, sultry, humid, yet always warm and welcoming town of Wilmington, North Carolina. Yes. Thank you, John, for solving the mystery that the internet couldn't. And it took you about 5 seconds. That's pretty cool. I guess the human brain isn't so outmoded after all. There might be room for us hairless monkeys on the planet yet. Good to know. Yeah, I gotta tell you guys, I am on air here doing Tent Talks Tunes, but I gotta make tonight a real quickie, a real hit and run. I am departing tomorrow to go to the aforementioned great state of North Carolina because Antiseen, these guys right here, I being the guy who will wear my own band's t-shirt, Antiseen has a very exciting, very cool gig coming up. Right there, you see the flyer for it, June 22nd. That is a Saturday, this coming Saturday, June 22nd, at the Ground Zero in Spartanburg, South Carolina. The Ground Zero has become Antiseen's home away from home. It's our veritable living room and hangout space. Since I joined the band a little over 5 years ago, we've played at the Ground Zero more often than any other venue. And I love the Ground Zero. The staff is great. The crew is great. The owners are great. The space is really cool. The sound, I've never heard us from the front of house, but everybody who's out there in the audience that I have spied and talked to after an Antiseen set has made a point of telling me how good it sounds out there when a band is playing. And I have seen plenty of other bands there, and they do all sound good. So what's not to love? And what's not to love about the Ground Zero having a 28th birthday on June 22nd? And what's not to love about Antiseen being invited to play the festivities along with our good pals from New Orleans, I Hate God, and the estimable J.D. Pincus, formerly of the Butthole Surfers, currently doing his own solo thing, which I have not heard, but I know people who have heard, and they all say it's awesome. Good enough for me. because I only hang out with people with good taste. That's been a long-standing rule for a very, very, very long period of time. I do not hang out with people who have bad taste. And the fact that you are here right now is proof of that theorem, and I will hoist a jug of Danbury Tap to that. So anyway, to circle right back to circumnavigate to the original point, leaving tomorrow to go on this gala trip to play the big gig, and, you know, there's a lot of packing and stuff to do, last minute, blah, 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 and I was driving around doing some errands earlier today, and I turned on my air conditioner, because it reached a wonderful high of 89 degrees today in Danbury. Turned on my air conditioner, and all it did was feebly kind of... it just kind of puffed some lukewarm air out of it. And I said, you know what? It's 88 in Danbury today, and it's definitely going to be in the 90s tomorrow when I'm driving to North Carolina. There is no way. No way. No way. And as they say in the great town of Nogales, Sonora, Mexico, no way. No way. There is no way I'm going to drive 810 miles without an air conditioner. And that's just one direction, okay? I'd have to drive back as well. And, you know, I really came to this conclusion, you know, my first car ever was a 67 Buick Special when I lived in Florida. No air conditioner. The car that I had after that, still living in Florida, was a 72 Dodge Polara. No air conditioner. I made the move from Florida to Connecticut in an 85 Jeep that had heat, but no air conditioner. And that was our vehicle for quite a long time. And the first vehicle I ever owned completely on my own was a 1991 Ford Festiva, which had an air conditioner, but it didn't work, and I couldn't afford to fix it. And my vehicle after that was a 94 Saturn wagon with, as I recall, the same scenario. The air conditioner did not work, and I simply didn't have the scratch to get it fixed. So the first, gosh, that's going up into about 2008, 2009, somewhere around that. The first 44 years of my life and my entire driving career, I was using vehicles that did not have an air conditioner. So I can safely say, been there, done that. I ain't going back. I've paid my dues. I've punched the time clock. I have put probably 87,000 miles behind the wheel without an air conditioner. And when I realized today that my current sled had just huffed and puffed and gasped its last breath of even remotely cool air, I said, F that. I think I've earned the right to have air conditioning. So with that savage, monolithic determination set firmly in the forefront of my mind, I hastened over to the mechanic to get an air conditioner recharge. And because of that, it just kind of threw my whole schedule into discombobulation. It just threw everything back. It cost me a couple of hours to do that. So everything that I wanted to gather to do show and tell tonight for Tent Talks Tunes remains ungathered, sitting on the shelves and boxes where they are safely nestled right now in anticipation of the Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store, which you can see now has some dates. I don't know if you guys can actually read those hastily scrawled dates. If you can't, that's okay. I'm here to serve. My entire reputation was built on customer service. July 26th, July 27th, July 28th. The Trash American Style Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. That is where the items I was going to show and tell today are resting until the big day comes, or until when I do Tent Talks Tunes next week, and actually have the time to gather everything up and show you what it is, including the incredible, who is this, Bravestarr? I forgot his name already. Bravestarr, including the incredible Bravestarr Bank. I'm amazed after all these years of having it, all it took was one inquiry to the human hive mind to get the answer. Thank you again, John Bridges. Your knowledge of 90s cartoons, I'm assuming 90s, is at least as great as your knowledge of the Street Clones music catalog, which is to say, comprehensive. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So who's tuned in, man? Who we got? We got John Bridges, we got James Poga, we got Mike, we got Brian, we got Bruiser Braswell, we got Alan, we got Ray from Tucson, we got John Farrell saying Tent Talks Transportation, and we got Mr. James Burns, host of one of my favorite Facebook pages, the ROIO page, which is devoted to recordings of indeterminate origin. Recordings of indeterminate origin. ROIO. I have spent many, many, many hours, weeks, days perusing the goodies on that page. So thank you, Mr. James Burns, for hosting that page. And I love your profile picture, Hugo, the man of 1,000 faces. And I crack up a little bit every time I see that. That's cool. So to answer the question of Mr. James Burns, where am I heading? I'm heading to North Carolina. I know a lot of people from the Northeast are doing that and have been doing that, but I've never been a trend jumper. I am a trend maker. I am a trend setter. I do not follow trends. Thank you very much. It is pure happenstance that sets my nose in the direction of North Carolina. And I'll quote this factoid again as long as I possibly can. Actually, not a factoid, an opinion. I'd often stated that anybody who will uproot their entire life and move any number of miles in any direction to either join a band or pursue a relationship has got a head full of gravel rattling around in it, rather than a 3-pound loaf of brain material. I've always said that. That's always been my opinion. So, you know, of course, the question might be, Malcolm Tent, you old skeptic, why are you moving to North Carolina? Well, obviously, to be in a band and to pursue a relationship. I'm doing them both. I'm doing them both. Who says life isn't full of irony? Life is full of irony. Life's very definition is irony. I got a good band. There they are, Antiseen. I'm wearing their shirt. I've been a full-time, full-fledged, fully in good standing member of Antiseen for over 5 years. I'd say it's probably a pretty safe bet. I have been seeing my chick, the great Pissy Chrissy, for, gosh, in August it'll be 3 years. 3 years. And she and I have done a lot of work on the relationship, let me tell you guys. If our relationship was able to survive this long, with an 800-mile gulf between us, and we were able to do all of the work that we did in order to keep it going, I think that when I'm in much closer proximity, it should be much smoother sailing. Much smoother sailing. So my own skepticism aside, when you got a good band and you got a good woman waiting for you, you, being me, would be kind of silly not to seize that bull by the horns and drive it into the dirt. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it. I'm moving to North Carolina. And the Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store, which is July 26th, 27th, and 28th, is a key step in the process because I got stuff. I got a lot of stuff. My business is stuff. You know, my business is acquiring stuff. And then at least in theory, divesting myself of the stuff with a little bit of that pecuniary exchange in the middle to facilitate the transportation of said stuff. The problem, please hold on for 1 second. I see a quick question from Mr. Edward Braswell, a.k.a. Mondo. But he'll always be Bruiser Braswell to me. Bruiser, you have a question. I can't see it because my glasses aren't on. So I'm going to cut my own line of dialogue short for a second and say, Edward Braswell, quick question, MT, comma, is that I Hate God Antiseen tape variated? Well, you know, I'm glad you asked that, Mr. Braswell. I'm very glad you asked that because it saved me the trouble of broaching the subject. And this definitely ties into what I was just saying a second ago. My business is stuff, but I've never been comfortable being a salesman. I don't like to sell things. I've never enjoyed selling. What I enjoy is having people meet the material objects that they can use to enrich their lives. Musically, artistically, culturally, philosophically, whatever you might want to call it. I view myself as a facilitator. And since you have broached the subject, I'm going to facilitate you with the answer to your question, which is the I Hate God Antiseen cassette, which is making its debut, its world debut, at the show at the Ground Zero this Saturday, does indeed have not one, but two variants. Two of them. And if you want to get really technical, really technical, it's got 4. But just for the sake of convenience. The 2 main variants are, and I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, the version that's going to be available on our respective merch tables. I really hope you can read that. Let me take it out of the case to get rid of some of that glare. You can perhaps see on the flap of the J card that is a first day of issue cassette, dated and place stamped for the gig this coming Saturday. There are 138 of these. Right off the bat, I Hate God is getting 50, Antiseen is getting 50, and I'm putting the other 38 aside for myself for mail order, because that's the question that always seems to follow. It's like, hey, Malcolm Tent, you capitalist creep, is that I Hate God Antiseen cassette going to be available anywhere else in the known multiverse besides the gig? The answer is yes. It will be available in perpetuity via, of course, TPOS, Discogs, eBay, probably Bandcamp. I haven't really worked that one out yet, but Discogs and eBay, blah, 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 blah. As long as supplies last, there will be the first day of issue version. And then once those are gone, reach over here to the prop box. No, I don't have one handy. Once the first day of issues are gone, there's going to be a regular version of it with just like a more informational back flap with, like, you know, date and location of recording and all that. Supplies of those will be unlimited. Believe me when I say that. If anybody wants one ever, they will be able to have one. So that's the 2 main variants, and the sub-variants are the fact that the Antiseen cassettes are all made from upcycled, vintage, super high-grade chrome cassettes. And I really like the way these came out. I love the minimalist appearance of them with the small labels. And, you know, being a taper, and James Burns will appreciate this, being a taper almost my entire life. I mean, I've spent many hours in the pleasurable company of high-grade chrome cassettes with awesome music on them. So I'm sort of carrying on in a tradition of this. The other version, I don't have anything I can show you, but I Hate God specifically requested, actually I can show you a sort of approximation here. I Hate God specifically requested that their cassettes be made on bulk loaded generic cassettes. They just liked the aesthetic of it better, with a full-size printed label on each side and the single color shell. They didn't want brand names on theirs. Perfectly fine, I can accommodate. So technically and theoretically, the first day of issue and the regular issue are going to have the I Hate God bulk loaded cassettes and the Antiseen upcycled cassettes. So there you go. Depending on how much of a maniac and a completist you are, there's either 2 or 4 variants of it. Woo! So talking. See, this is great. I don't really need to do any show and tell. I've already been on the air for 22 minutes. And I don't know about you, but I'm having a lot of fun. This is really cool. I'm enjoying myself. Farewell to Connecticut pop-up store. Yakety yakety yak. Piles and mounds and heaps of stuff. And next week I should be a little more settled in. The deadline won't be looming over me, and I'll be able to actually drag everything out and do a real civilized show and tell. So, and I got to tell you, there's some really cool items to show and to tell. Mr. Doomstar, or whatever his name is, was merely one teensy-tiny little tweezer full out of the haystack. So many more bizarre items where this guy came from. So, yeah, what else is happening? Well, I'm playing a solo gig with Brute Force at the great Red Scroll Records on Friday, June 28th, which is next Friday, 9 days from now. Brute Force, in case you don't know, is one of the great unsung, I guess you could say, Tin Pan Alley songwriters of the 20th century, and he's still going strong. He was on Apple Records, he was on Columbia Records, he was a member of the Tokens, and his specialty is just really eccentric, off-the-wall pop songs. And I'm going to trust James Pogo with this one, because James Pogo, you are always very good and proactive about information. James Pogo, would you be so kind, please, to do a quick look-up of Sandwich of Love by Brute Force and post a link to it? I'm relying on you, pal, in this my dire hour of need, because people really need to hear Sandwich of Love by Brute Force. And if you can dig Sandwich of Love, then you're going to really be in a Sandwich of Love when you get to see the man play live with me as the opener. I'm going to bring out my solo acoustic guitar, the bright, sparkly blue guitar that's been all over this world a couple of times. And I'll be singing mostly originals with a few choice select weird covers, as is my habit. So I am looking forward to seeing Brute Force, and doubly looking forward to getting to play some music with him. I predict a great night of entertainment at a bargain price of only $10. All ages welcome, and you're at one of Connecticut's best record stores, which is Red Scroll Records. To quote myself yet again, what's not to love? No answers. I didn't think so. There is nothing not to love. James Pogo is said he doesn't have a fancy phone to do that trick, but he does love the Brute Force album. There you go. And I'm just going to leave it up to you guys. Look up Brute Force, Sandwich of Love. And if you're going to get that, you better get yourself to the show. And let's see. Oh, yeah, well, the night after that, or the whole day after that, I'm going to be setting up doing my regular record store distro thing at the Punk Rock Flea Sideshow at the Brass Mills Mall in Waterbury, Connecticut. That is June 29th. That's a whole separate thing from the pop-up store. I've got my regular, oh, yes, and Tapeworm of Love, too. Actually, yes, I got my song titles right. It's To Sit on a Sandwich. To Sit on a Sandwich is the name of the Brute Force I was thinking of, and Tapeworm of Love is the other one. Sandwich of Love is a song by the Mentors. Whole different thing entirely. This is a family-safe show. We don't want to go there. But yes, Tapeworm of Love by Brute Force, and to sit on a sandwich. Also by brute force. Enough said. Excuse me while I burp ever so slightly. June 29th, my regular spread of awesome music, records, tapes, CDs, TPOS product. I'll be doing it. I'll be doing it. Whew. And my friends, my distant cousins, I gotta tell you, there's an unlimited supply of information out there, but I have no more. I'm sorry if today's Tent Talks Tunes was more of an infomercial than entertainment, but hey, I got my air conditioner fixed, and I'll be able to sign off and achieve a few things that really need to be achieved before I hit the road tomorrow. So thanks, guys, as always, for tuning in. I think after things settle down this weekend a little bit, I'll be able to get back on the air next Wednesday as normal with lots of show and tell, stories from the road, cool things, witty banter, jaundiced opinions, the usual stuff. And that's it. I do hope that everybody is happy, hale, hearty, healthy, and raising hell. As for me, I do expect to be back in 167 hours. So until that time arrives, and we meet again, this is Malcolm Tent saying so long from the Nutmeg State.